Heucheras have become so popular in recent years that they've taken the gardening world by storm in so many different colours. They're really adaptable to different positions in the garden. The dark coloured foliage ones, for example, really like growing in full sun if you've got that sort of position. If you've got some of the golden leafed forms, then they really benefit from being grown in the shade. So there's a Heuchera to suit each location in your garden, and they're pretty unfussy for soils too. The only soils they don't really like are very, very thin sandy ones, but they're brilliant for growing in pots, which is how we've got them here. As for position in the garden, they're great for the front of border where you might want small things to grow along the edge of a path or by the side of a lawn, but they're equally good grown in pots on a patio where you can group them together, perhaps swap them around so you get the different coloured foliages contrasting with one another. You can really mix and match with Heucheras, and they're really good for making a single statement plant within a group of other plants. So you might have a lot of green foliage plants during the winter in particular, and these just create a little eye-catching focal point really in the border with these different coloured leaves. As with all perennial garden plants, Heucheras are best planted either in the autumn so that they've got chance to establish before the winter sets in, or better still wait until the spring before committing them into the ground so that the plants are just coming back into growth and can grow away strongly and won't be affected by sitting around in cold, wet soil during the winter. They're also ideal for growing in containers, as we've already mentioned, and you can really plant those up any time of year really, as long as you keep the compost moist, keep the plant well watered during dry weather. So I'm going to pot this Heuchera into this terracotta pot. I think the leaves go really well with it colour wise. Knock it out of the pot, and I've already pre-wet this so that it slides out of the pot easily and the roots will establish into the fresh compost really readily. Offer it into the pot, and that's just about right. So we don't want to bury the crown of the plant when we're planting. We want to keep that crown just sitting above the surface of the compost or the soil if you're planting out in the open garden. I'm just filling in with compost all the way around the edge here, and then firming it in as I go in layers so that we don't end up with any air spaces. Fill it up level with the rim of the pot. Do a last bit of firming around the edge, little bit of a gap around the back here. Firm it in. Tap the sides of the pot, jiggle the pot around just to settle that compost in place. Give it a good slosh of water, and that one is ready to join its partners. Thankfully, Heucheras are pretty easy care plants. That's probably one of the reasons why they're so popular. They don't need a lot of care other than keeping them well watered during hot, dry weather, perhaps even moving the pots out of full sun if it really is a prolonged hot summer, moving them into a shady spot so they don't get over scorched and singed, removing the dead flowers once they've faded, pinching them right back down to the base so that you don't leave a little stalk that would die back, and really pulling off any dead or faded leaves so that again they don't rot back into the plant. Propagation wise, Heucheras are really fairly straightforward to bulk up by just pure division. So when the plants get older, you can see here in the middle of this plant, it starts to become established and it starts to produce different growing points. There's a couple of different growing points there. This plant is still a little bit young to split it, but in a year or so's time, once each of those new growing points has bulked up a bit, you'd be able to cut through with a knife and lift it out the pot, cut through with a knife and divide it into two different plants. You can also save seed. Once the flowers have finished, leave some of the flower stalks on and you may well get some seed set in there, and you can sow from seed and get different coloured forms from those seeds. Other than that, because they are a clump forming plant, you can't take cuttings. Thankfully, pruning wise, there's not really that much to do. You can prune back the foliage as it starts to fade in the autumn, taking off all the lower leaves that have become discoloured or might be starting to rot back, but always leave that central crown in place, because that's what will regrow the following spring. At the end of the year, if you haven't taken back those spent flower stalks, then take them right down in the autumn so that they're not wangling around during the winter months, and just give the plants a quick tidy through so that they don't retain moisture in their crowns over the winter months. Surprisingly, for such popular plants, there are a couple of things that Heucheras suffer from that really make them problematic, if you like. One is that sometimes you can get mildew on the surface of the leaves, which really overtakes the whole plant and can make them look very ugly, in which case pick all the infected leaves off and try and reduce that mildew really getting a hold in the first place. The other thing is that they fall prey, particularly when they're grown in pots, to vine weevil, and the adults will chew notches in the leaves, and the grubs which hatch out from the eggs that the adults lay, they will attack the roots and eat away at the roots underground. Sometimes the whole top of the Heuchera plant can just lift off. So check the roots of the plants regularly to make sure that they're not infested. And then I did check this plant earlier, and I found that it's got some holes in the leaves, and that's not typical of vine weevil. That's actually probably down to this little beast hidden down in the bottom here. So we've got a snail here that's marauding in. Slugs and snails need to be checked for quite regularly. And one thing you can do is hand pick them if they're reluctant to come off, even still with a bit of Heuchera attached. And so protect the plants with something like this wool slug bait, really. It's made of compressed sheep's wool. Just put this around the base of the plant because the slugs and snails won't like to walk across it. The only downside is it pongs a bit. As far as varieties of Heuchera go, really there's so many different ones to choose from in various different coloured leaf forms. There are plain green leaf forms like this one with a little bit of silveryness on the foliage. This one's called Paris, got lovely red flowers as well. There's this one which is Northern Exposure Amber. There are a whole host of amber and apricot and yellow varieties. Again, these prefer growing in semi-shaded positions, otherwise the leaves will scorch. And then all the plum coloured varieties in these gorgeous shades of purple and reddish tones. This one is called Sweet Princess. All of these coloured leafed ones tend not to produce too much in the way of flower, but some of the more modern varieties have been bred to produce flowers in a range of colours from cream through white into these pinks and reds. So there's a whole host to choose from, and to be honest, choose the ones you like the look of. There aren't many evergreen foliage plants that come in such a wide variety of different foliage colours, so really they're an absolute must to have in your garden to bring colour all year round.